Hey, family. Welcome, welcome, welcome. And I am going to try to share my screen for the first time on a live with this platform. But I welcome you. And I got a quick legal training that I know will bless your life if you jump on it for the gem that it is. So I am needing to share my screen. How does this work? All right, so I think I'm sharing my screen. Okay, yes, I am sharing my screen. Um, this is just my love letter to the generational curse breakers. And I'll tell you exactly how to get the entire document after the training. It looks like a Gemini has all kind of notes over here to the side. All right, that helps me make sense. All right, so I'm going to jump right in. Start on time, end on time. And if you catch the replay, I want you to really seize this opportunity. And just to give a little background, for whatever reason, lately I have been very, very concerned, sensitive to, aware of, mindful of Gen Z. Excuse me. And I was very, very blessed the other evening when I saw a handful of Gen Z believers showing up, shining their light, and ministering directly out of the Bible, ministering the word of truth, sharing their faith, and really being a light out here in social media. And it really blessed me in a way that I felt like, you know what, I really want to show up in a more intentional way. This was an intention that I set a year ago when I attempted to stream live from Instagram. That was a little bit of a disaster, and I never really figured out how to get back on track. But this is more of a continuation of that public commitment to show up more on behalf of Gen Zs and millennials. I'm not excluding millennials at all, but doing my part. One of the biggest tragedies is the loss of transfer of knowledge from generation to generation. We have boomers who are exiting the workforce who have a wealth of life experience that, excuse me, is not always being transferred to millennials and Gen Zs for a number of reasons. It's all kind of reasons. But this is something that we cannot afford as families, as community, to lose the generational transfer. So this is my small, humble contribution to the generational transfer of knowledge. And I want to begin by saying that one of my biggest frustrations is with organized religion, because we have men and women of faith worldwide who are really, I'm full of zeal and passion about their faith, about the word, and they find themselves struggling in life on a very practical level. And one of the biggest reasons is that, you know, how food that we have access to now, commercial food, it doesn't have the vitamins in it. The vitamins have been separated from it and sold to you in a different bottle. That's what mainstream religion has become. It's become it looks like food that's supposed to nourish you, but it's creating spiritual malnutrition because it separated legal understanding of the spiritual world from the spiritual nature of the teaching. So what was left is what I call mystical mayonnaise. It is a form of spiritual spookiness where you have these dimensions and depths of understanding and feeling and goosebumps that are impractical for use in daily living. You cannot convert that understanding into actual power, manifesting power, and you're spooky. It just kind of feels good to be spooky. This is a product of organized religion. And that is why I call it mystical mayonnaise, because number one, I don't like mayonnaise, and number two, it's mystical. And so if you've ever asked someone to explain something out of the Bible and their explanation only made you feel more confused, then you may have just been served a dose of mystical mayonnaise. So this is my cover letter for my reason for doing this, and just my encouragement to you if you are a generational curse breaker, because you're in good company. You may feel like you're the black sheep of the family. You may feel like you don't fit in with your family, or you find it very hard to fit in with a lot of other people for that matter. You may be called to break generational curses. If you find that you could be in a room full of people and still feel alone, that is not you being an oddball. That's not you being crazy. That is very much one of the markings of a person who is called to this realm of breaking generational curses. And I want to equip you with this legal understanding. 3 laws. We're going to keep it down to 3 so that you can begin practicing breaking generational curses with legal knowledge and understanding, and not just a spooky inspirational message. The very first law is the law of polarity. And the law of polarity means this, is that everything that exists, there's 2 sides. There's 2 sides to everything. That's why we don't look like a pancake, right? We are we are multidimensional in the 3D world. Well, when it comes to spiritual circumstances and spiritual things like blessings and curses, if there's one aspect, there's an opposite aspect. If there's light, then there's darkness. If there's a blessing, then there's a curse. If there's a curse, then there is a blessing. So I know that these conversations go on with Gen Zs because I have these conversations offline, and many of you are noticing these patterns in your family that are ratchet, ghetto, painful, embarrassing, shameful. And what you've been seeing playing out in your family is the cursed side of spiritual being, the cursed side of spiritual circumstances. There are 2 atmospheres in the spirit. It's either a blessed atmosphere or it's a cursed atmosphere. You're blessed or cursed. So this is the law of duality. I want to encourage you to always be aware and develop an awareness of this, that wherever one thing exists, its opposite exists as well. This is a spiritual law. Memorizing scriptures is great, but without understanding the legal framework or the mechanics of the law that are involved in all of the scriptures, then you know a lot of words, but you don't really know how they work. So I hope that makes sense. Hey, welcome to the live, Yim and Antonio. It's good to have y'all. Thank you for joining the training. If you have any questions, or if you have any anything that you want to throw in, make sure you're going to break out your legal notepad. Yes, get your legal pad. Or you use the yellow one or the white one. And what generational curses do you identify in your family? Do you see that you're called to break any of them, all of them? I'd love for you to drop and share in the comments. And I'm going to be sharing a little bit about my own journey through spiritual breaking generational curses, recognizing the curses, Okay, sweetie. And I'm making sure that you understand that I'm coming from a place of walking my talk. And I really do have a passion for my folks who feel like black sheep and who don't understand why. It's because this is a very, very special assignment. So I begin by saying that when it comes to blessing and cursing, the foundational understanding of this in the Bible is in the book of Deuteronomy, chapter 28. Now, why is this important? Deuteronomy is actually the book of the exchange of the wedding vows that I like the most because it's repeating the law that was given in Exodus. But the way that it's done, you can really see the marriage ceremony in the book of Deuteronomy. And in Deuteronomy chapter 28 is all of the consequences. Consequences for obedience always got you blessing. Consequences for disobedience always got you curses. This law of the covenant was established in Deuteronomy 28. Do not let uh, religious teachers tell you that these things are done away with, that the law is done away with. If you go and you touch a hot stove right now, you are going to get burned. That law is not done away with. These principles of obedience and disobedience are helping us to understand the spiritual law of blessing and cursing. This didn't change because of the death, burial, and resurrection of Christ or Messiah, as some of us call him. His sacrifice didn't change the consequence of the law. In fact, he said, I didn't come to get rid of the law. I came to fulfill the law. He was coming to fulfill his role as the high priest. And so I'm not going to go off into that area. I just want to establish as a law, blessings and curses are consequences of law. It will always happen. Blessing will always happen with obedience. Curses will always happen with disobedience. This is what we are supposed to train little children to understand when they're young. Make sense? This is how we, you got a yellow legal pad. That's what's up, Antonio. As adults, we teach little kids how to be obedient, how to listen, right? Because we want our children to be blessed, not cursed. But what happens when our children don't obey, don't follow our instructions? They get what? They get a consequence. They get something taken away from them. They might get a pat on, like little pow pow on the hand. They might be put on, they might be grounded or have their phone taken away if you're dealing with an older child. Well, that's a curse. That is the consequence of disobedience. These are laws. And when we begin to think of them as laws, we can become more practical about our faith. So the Deuteronomy 28 blessings and cursings, they're like three major categories that you can break them into. And I would encourage you to, read them. And especially if you are breaking generational curses in your family, begin declaring these blessings over yourself. Begin seeing yourself as being protected from physical harm because the Father is protecting you because you live in obedience. You walk in alignment with his word. You walk in agreement with who he is and the calling on his life. That any victory that any warfare that you might be involved in, you will have victory, whether that be a spiritual fight or some other kind of fight that's going on, and he will give you safety and victory in any kind of battle. Divine identity, that you have that security in knowing who you are and who you belong to. So you're not walking around here feeling like a fatherless child. You are rooted and grounded in who your creator is. You can begin to speak and bless yourself as a generational curse breaker because your word becomes the law concerning your life. That's how word works. So we have the physical well-being, we have financial wellness, and these are the blessings and the curses that are broken down. And believe it or not, like having lots of children is considered a blessing. We now live in a culture that really does not prioritize having children. Children are seen as burdens and all this other stuff. But these things are blessings. Having a place to create wealth, whether it be in a city or whether it be in a rural area, having harvest, whether that's a physical harvest of agriculture or whether that's a harvest of income that's coming from your creative efforts and the earth being like your Father. Begin and continue to speak these things, these blessings over your life. And the polar opposite, looking at the law of polarity, are all of the curses, which many of us, we have too much familiarity with in our experience. We know what that looks like, we know what it feels like, we know what that suffering is, and we're called to break out of that so that we can put the next generation in a better position. And the third category here are international relationship wellness. This is the influence that we as a people have when we are doing a good job of walking and living and talking in alignment with who the king is. Then the nation becomes blessed. This is another one of the big themes that you see throughout the scripture, the blessing of the nation because of the obedience of the people. So, in summary, what blessing and cursing really boils down to is prosperity versus poverty. And so, if you are feeling called to this area of breaking generational curses, you realize that you were born into an impoverished situation. Maybe you came into a family with financial hardship. A lot of times with financial hardship, you're going to see the hardship of a really poor health, physical health, and physical and mental health. Those are often going to be attached and flow from financial poverty. Usually, you're going to also see the poverty of health. And then when you have the poverty of health, you have a sick and dying nation. Then you also are losing your international influence as a nation. Your nation is declining. Your nation is weak because the people are weak in their bodies and in their pocket. But it is prosperity versus poverty, and breaking generational curses is becoming someone who hates poverty on every single level. You hate poverty when it comes to your wellness, your health. You hate poverty when it comes to your pockets, your money, your investment, your business, the creation of solutions in the earth. And you learn to hate poverty in the area of not having community influence, where you are able to make a difference in the world as a community because y'all are walking in a place of prosperity. So that was cheat code number one. Cheat code number two. Let me move my microphone. I'm sorry, I forgot to set this up. All right, cheat code number two. Honor is the building block of blessing. And this is why I really want to get personal with you and just share a little bit of my personal background. So, my family began in terms of my grandmother and where my mother was born. My mother was born in the inner city of Miami, in a housing project called Lincoln Field. That's where my grandmother, my grandfather and grandmother began their family of 7 children, in the heart of Miami in the projects. And with that was a family who worked really hard. My granddad worked every day, brought his check home. My grandma made it happen with all of those children that they had to feed. They eventually were able to move to the suburbs and out of the projects. But with that was neither of them really had education. My grandmother's education ended in the 8th grade. I don't know much about my grandfather's education, but he was a severe alcoholic, and he was also very, very abusive to his children. And so, what I was born into was a generational curse of financial, psychological poverty, and child abuse. I was born into that. In fact, I was a part of not only that, teen pregnancy. My grandmother was very, very young when she began having children. My mother and another one of her sisters were teen parents. I inherited that as well. I became a mom at 14. And it wasn't until about 19, 20 years old, I just kind of started looking at my mom, her sisters, my grandma, and while reading the Bible, trying to figure out, like, I noticed in the Bible that every time one of the patriarchs was ready to die, he would start blessing his children. And I never saw anybody bless their children. In fact, what I often saw was my mother and her sisters talking trash about my grandma. Because my grandma gave them what she had to give. I'm not excusing her flaws as a human being and the way that she hurt my mother and her siblings by her lack of presence as a mom. She wasn't a nurturing mom, and my mother and her siblings carried a lot of emotional wounds because of that. So I'm not giving grandma a pass for things she could have done better, but my grandmother gave her children what she had to give, and her children gave what they had to give to us, if that makes sense when you look at generational curses. So I realized that I noticed this pattern in the Old Testament. I'm reading it, and all of the fathers are blessing their children before they die. So I sat down in my grandma's room one day. I might have been 20 years old, and I started noticing like nobody has anything good to say about grandma. Grandma has nothing good to say about her children. But there seems to be a pattern in the Bible that shows that the older generation has authority to pass a blessing down to the younger generation. My grandfather is deceased, so my grandmother is the matriarch of the family. So I said, Grandma, you know how the Bible has the pattern of like the father's leaving the blessing for the kids? She said, Yeah, baby. I said, can I ask you a question? She said, What is it? I said, have any of your children ever asked you for a blessing? My grandmother went crazy when I asked her this. First of all, she was a Baptist minister. And if you've ever been like a pastor's kid or anything like that, then you know how easy it is for everybody outside of your family to love you, but your family can't stand you. Like, so that was my grandma. Her own kids can't stand her, but many people outside of her own home really did honor her and love her and bless her because of her ministry to her church. So my grandma got real upset because she said she had never thought about it. And she said, you know what? These children around here, they ain't never asked me for a blessing. So I said, well, Grandma, can I ask you for your blessing? My grandmother was almost moved to tears that here I was, her young grandchild. Yes, I had already had two children by this time. My life was a train wreck. I was barely able to get through undergrad. It was on again, off again, going to school, get a job, lose a job, homeless. I mean, the whole thing. Like my life was such a curse of instability, financial struggle, and the teen pregnancy and the poverty that was attached to me that I knew I needed help. And I reached to my elder to get this help. And this is one of the biggest missing pieces of this generation's understanding. If you can tap into the law of honor, it will absolutely radically change your life. It wasn't until after I asked my grandmother for her blessing that I began to break the cycle of homelessness over my life, that I broke the curse of being in abusive relationships, that I broke the curse of being distracted from being able to complete my education. It was after my grandmother's blessing that one thing after the other began to line up in my life. And I'm telling you, if you will begin to honor the Creator, don't speak to him only when you asking for something. Bless him. Thank him. Every single day you get up is a day that mercy is renewed unto you. Give him praise and thanks. Bless his holy name. He is wonderful. Honor him with your time and attention. Honor yourself by looking at what he has put in place for us as an honor code, which is the 10 commandments. Use that honor code and match it up against the way you're honoring your body, your mind, your words. Honor yourself. Honor your neighbor. Begin to think of ways that you can live in honor. When I tell you this law in and of itself will radically change your life, because what the popular culture wants you to think is it's YOLO. You only live once. Do you? It don't bother nobody else. I'm sorry. But when you look at the pattern of the scripture, law and prophecy are patterns. When you look at the pattern, what an individual does as an obedient person is going to impact the economic blessing of the community, which is going to impact the national security. Our obedience and our ability to live in the honor code is a matter of national security. When you have a culture that is dominated by dishonor, disrespect, kids who don't even know how to talk to adults, husband and wives who don't know how to honor one another, people in the workplace being messy, backstabbing, undermining each other. That is a national security issue. When you understand that the strength and the prosperity of a nation, according to this biblical pattern, begins with honor, if you double down on honor, you are going to completely change the game and the trajectory of the future of your family. Let me just take a minute and try to see if I can see broken family, addiction, poverty, miseducation, slave violence, vagabond, all of it, breaking it. Amen. I'm so glad that you're here because all of these things are evil cousins of curse. The curse comes and it manifests in all of these different ways that you listed, Anthony, and you being called to break these things. It means that you are tried and tested in ways that tempt you to quit. The journey that you have to walk through to break these curses off of you that you inherited from your family tempt you to rage quit all the time. These kind of curses. But I want you to know that the victory is yours so long as you do not quit. You will reap the reward of walking into the prosperous place, the place of blessing. And these things absolutely will be broken off of your life when you practice these principles. And they're so simple that it's easy to overlook. You're going to be like, Shar, that's it. It's this simple. And that's why I'm doubling down on honor. Because not only did I learn how to how I learned how to kind of start breaking out of some foolishness by coming to my grandmother and asking my grandmother for her blessing. But then another chapter of my life completely changed when it came to my father. I'll get to that in just a moment. As we get to the next point, I'll tell you how my honor for my father changed the game as well. So, where we are individually in our obedience does affect our economy, and that affects our national security. That is the pattern of the Deuteronomy 28 curses. And I'm wondering if y'all see that connection. Are you able to see it based on what I've illustrated so far? Hey, welcome in, Divine Intelligence. It's nice to have you here for the live. Hey, Big Red, good to see you, brother. Welcome to the live. Just want to make sure that I'm painting a picture of the connection between the individual, the economy, and national security. This is what the blessing and the cursing is about. The blessings are not about you feeling good and being good for you and no concern for the person next to you, your neighbor. Our lack of community in our modern culture in our urban centers has a lot to do with why we've lost the honor consciousness of how to relate to one another. And one of the things that I say often, I'm like, look, if I eat, we all eat. That is a community minded economy. And the blessing that comes from an individual's obedience does have absolute power to spill over into blessing and prosperity for your neighbor. If you think about it like a tree, and I grew up with my grandmother had a mango tree in the backyard in Miami, best fruit on earth. When you look at a tree, that mango tree produced so many mangoes that there was no way that my grandmother, all of her 7 kids, or all of her grandchildren, we could not consume all of those mangoes. That tree was a community tree. Kids jumping the fence, people knocking on the door, coming with grocery bags, asking if they could come and take. It was so much fruit. Please. That's how blessing works. Blessing is a community economic benefit. And that's what we have to understand about generational curses. It's not about you and about you feeling good and about you being good. It's about you impacting the economy of an entire community. Hey, welcome, Auntie. Good to see you. Y'all know it take me a little longer to read these comments. Hey, Brother Ty. Blessing. Good to see you, brother. Can we get a copy of that? Oh, you're gonna get this. I'm gonna tell you exactly how to get it at the end, brother Antonio. So thank you for asking. I will absolutely make sure to give you the link to download your free copy of this study guide. I just want to make sure I grab the other hey, Auntie Bonetta in the house. Good to see you. Welcome. Oh, mangoes. Overflowing with mangoes. Look, mango is my favorite fruit to illustrate spiritual principles. Mangoes, when you catch them like gold and red and like the juicy with and like the juice just running down your arm, like nothing better on earth. But a fruit tree is designed to bless the entire community. A tree is never about you as an individual. It's never about your house as your house. Blessing is about the community. And so when we begin to walk in that prosperous place through our individual obedience, we are literally in a position to become an economic benefit to an entire community and to the entire nation. So yes, I'm including these questions in here for you to kind of do like an honor check. How am I showing up in honor? How am I doing in honor? This thing will radically transform your life. So the third point, the third law in here is the third cheat code is the law of contracts. Now, a generational curse is a contract that somebody in your family made through disobedience. And the consequences of that disobedience was inherited by you and everybody else in your bloodline because someone has not gone and dealt with that spiritual contract. I talk a lot about this in the very first book that I wrote, how I came into, like, I just began noticing my practice of law in the natural world, how much it was related to my faith in the spiritual law, and began to develop these understandings. And so I talk about the Little Mermaid because Disney was showing us how spiritual contracts work. Ariel was out here dishonoring her daddy. And Ariel done rolled up on the witch, right? And she made a deal with the witch. And her agreement with dishonoring her father is how she ended up what? Cursed. She had no voice. She trying to go snap the man. The man fell in love with her voice, and she got cursed to be voiceless because she was dishonoring her daddy. Y'all see it? Y'all see how she made that contract? Excuse me. Okay, how does the elder show honor? Let me tell you. The way the Most High has given me these things, I'm gonna talk about honor real quick to answer your question. I worked with a paralegal who was from Puerto Rico, and one of the elder honor traditions that exist in her family that she shared with me was that when a younger person enters into a house or into a room where an older person is, and y'all know in the Black community, we say when you enter the room, you got to do what? You got to say, hey, you got to speak, right? So that's like a thing that's kind of similar. As she was sharing Puerto Rican culture with me, I was like, oh yeah, with Black folk, you don't come in the room and don't speak. So in Puerto Rico, when the younger child enters the room, they say bendición to the older person. And bendición is the word for blessing. And in response, the elder says to the younger person, Dios te bendiga. Dios te bendiga. God bless you. So to answer your question, how does an elder bless a younger person? Use the word, may God bless you. May the Most High bless you. May the Father bless you. May your children be blessed. May your business be blessed. May the things that your hands touch be blessed. We culturally, when you look at the Bible, this is how you speak in blessing. Biblical culture is a culture of speaking blessing. May all go well with you. May your travels be with peace. These are blessings. So when you want to bless a younger person as an elder, literally tell them, bless you, sweetheart. I bless you. May the Father bless you and keep you. But may the Father bless you and keep you is a very standard and powerful and beautiful blessing. I don't know if you've ever had someone just say that to you as an individual, like the way it really like brings your spirit alive. Excuse me, it is a spiritual blessing. It is a benefit. They're not just words. You're literally giving this younger person spiritual covering for their journey in life. Does that make sense? Does that answer your question? So, cheat code number 3, it does. Hallelujah. Good, good. Cheat code number 3, the law of contract. Agreement with dishonor or disobedience is how the curse came in the first place. Agreement with honor is how you get a blessing, a contract blessing. And so this octopus witch is my illustration of reminding us that the spirit world is very real, so real, and the law of the spirit world is so real that even Disney was teaching it to children decades ago. And here's my final warning about this. There is a common misalignment when you are called to be a generational curse breaker. It's not enough for you to just say, I'm done with this curse over my family. I'm done with this curse. I'm done with poverty. Okay, you can say that. But now you got to start training your mind to line up with what you're saying. You got to start thinking prosperity thoughts. That's why these blessings that's in this chart, that's in this study guide, speak them over your lives. I'm blessed in the city and I'm blessed in the field. The fruit of my womb is blessed. My everything that I touch, my storehouse is blessed. My finances are blessed. My home is in peace and safety. My physical body is in peace and safety. My family is in peace and safety. The shalom of heaven is with me wherever I go, whether I'm in the city or whether I'm in the field. Everywhere I go is blessed. Anyone who blesses me is blessed. Begin to speak those blessings, because speaking it and thinking it has to line up. A lot of times we say stuff, but we still have beliefs in the back of our head that's the opposite of what we're saying. And when we do that, we're not in agreement. You as a person are not in agreement. You say one thing, but you think it's something else. You're saying, I'm done with these curses, but in the back of your mind, you're thinking, I'm not good enough. Thinking I'm not good enough, especially when you're called to be a generational curse breaker, it's easy for you to think that you're not good enough because you feel alone a lot. You feel isolated a lot. Your own family really don't fool with you because you don't fit in. So it's easy for those thoughts of rejection, for you to begin to think that the Father has rejected you, therefore he really doesn't want to bless you. So you gotta replace that kind of thinking that comes from rejection and that comes from being isolated in your status as a curse breaker, to line them up with what you're saying. No, I'm blessed. I'm blessed because I'm a child of the King. The King loves me. I'm the apple of his eye. He has fearfully and wonderfully made me. He has set his attention upon me to bring me to an expected end. He has a reward set up for me so long as I do not faint. And I choose the joy of the Lord, which is my strength. I will make it. I will endure, and he has rewarded me. I am blessed and I am prosperous because I am in alignment with my Father and his will. I am an obedient child, and I receive his correction with thanksgiving because he makes my crooked path straight. You see, you begin to speak like this and declare like this. It lines your thinking up with your mouth. And then the third part of it is your behavior. So you do not have a new contract with prosperity that breaks the curse of poverty until now your behavior also lines up with it. Excuse me. So the behavior that aligns with prosperity and the breaking of that curse, you're going to have to make some different decisions. For me, one of the things was my mother was 57 years old when she died. And why did my mama die? My mama had fat girl problems. Why did my mama have fat girl problems? because she still ate like she was from the projects. She never changed her mindset to align with her increased finances to make healthier decisions and to eat better foods. She never used those resources to go and invest in her physical health. So she deteriorated and she decayed from that impoverished way of living, sedentary with that raggedy eating and all that Kool-Aid. So when my mother died so young, I looked at my children and I said to myself, I can't have my kids losing me this young, not over something that I can control. So if I'm going to break the curse of premature death that comes from poor health, guess what Shar got to do? Shar has to do more cooking at home, has to eat more vegetables and fruit, and Shar has to go exercise. Shar got to get herself up and go move her body and get her body to sweating and moving to align with her declaration. I'm not going out like my mama. I can't go out like my mama went out. That is my decision to break that curse. That premature death curse on my family. I'm gonna tell y'all right now. Everybody except for one person out of my mother's 7 siblings is still alive today. An entire generation is gone because of generational curses. So you can't tell me I'm not called to see it and notice it and do something about it, because I'm like, how was a whole generation gone? My mother's only living sibling is only 65. That's young. And she the oldest one. You mean everybody else was gone before 50? How that makes sense? Tell me how that's not a curse. I saw it was a couple of comments. Give me a second to read them. By speaking of blessings, we give that person the opportunity to come into agreement. Absolutely. Yes. 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 Some of the most sticky, nasty curses that people are still walking around with is curses that their own parents spoke over them. I mean, I won't even repeat the stuff that people say to their kids. And I've always been very, very sensitive about words. Brother Antonio, I've been always very sensitive about words. One time, my brother called my baby. He called my baby out his name. I went there. My brother and I, we never fought. We were very, very close. We never fought. I went in my brother's room after he called my baby out of his name, and I told him, I said, you could call whoever you want that, but don't you ever call my baby nothing but his name. And we never had that problem again, because I was very sensitive to words, and I did not want my children being hurt by words from older people that now they growing up, they got to figure out these words that's been spoken over them, all the good for nothing stuff that was said about them. Speak blessings, speak life over people, and yes, give them the opportunity to come into agreement, and then you make the new contract with prosperity, with the way you think, with the way you speak, and with your action that lines up with the new thing, that lines up with prosperity. You cannot say that you are breaking generational poverty in your finances, but you are not willing to be a good steward over your income. You don't even budget your money. You're not a giver, and you don't give to charity or to the poor. You rack up debt on things that make you feel good in the moment. You don't learn discipline over your impulses and your impulse buying. You can't say that you want to break generational poverty in your finances, but you're not changing your behavior. Does that make sense? So the behavior change has to match what you're saying, and what you're saying has to match what you're thinking, and what you're thinking has to be lined up with what the word of truth says. That's how we break generational curses. So I pray that these laws bless you and give you a practical framework for how to continue to fight the good fight of faith. Any questions about the material? To gain access to this study guide, you can go over and visit the link that I just posted in the comments. I will also put it in the description box of this video so that you can download your copy of the study notes, which also, again, they do include my this is my encouragement to you, every single one of you curse breakers. Again, the generational curse breakers, you're not out here by yourself. You're not the only one out here. You've been going through all kind of rejection, not figuring out how to fit in. Why it seems like you swimming against the current. Nobody understand you. Nobody gets you. You the oddball everywhere you go. Look, it's a calling. But there are a lot of us out here fighting a good fight. These practical tools are designed to encourage you. Get your library card. Law for Love is a law school for lovers. We are teaching law. I will be definitely doing more legal training as we continue to move forward into this next year. You'll be seeing more of these legal cheat sheets, study guides, things like this to help you enhance your study and reading of the scripture. I also have a study guide in there called Crisis of Faith. Absolutely free download. Register for your library card and get a copy of Crisis of Faith. At the very end of it, there's a framework in there how to understand what each book of the Bible is. It's like the when you go to solve a picture, you have to solve the edges first. I provide you with the frame, the marital government framework, so that when you are reading the Bible, you understand how does it relate to everything else. Because when we were taught scriptures, we were taught like the memory verse and then the sermon, and then another memory verse and then the sermon. But when we've learned that way, we don't see how everything is connected to the king, his marriage, and his family, and the government that it reveals, which is his heart and his intention for all humankind, all of his creation, who he loves so dearly. And we are called to be representatives of that government. But if we don't understand how the government works, we can't really teach the nations what that looks like and how it works. So we just kind of like shooting in the dark, or as we used to call it back in Miami, when you fight, like just swinging your arms, you just windmilling, you swinging. We need to become sharpshooters in the spirit. Legal training helps you to sharpen your aim, understand what you're shooting at. And so here with the generational curses, I pray and encourage you to continue your journey, continue to fight, continue to do the very practical work. If there's a curse there, it's a blessing on the other side. How do I get to the blessing? To do the opposite of what got us cursed, which is obedience. And change the behavior and the thinking and the speaking. How all of them were talking at the cookout, talking all kind of crazy, all of the gossipy stuff, all of the messiness, all of that. We have to do the opposite of that to get to the prosperous place that our Father has intended for us to go. So you are most welcome. Yes, thank you for having a library card at YIM. I appreciate you and welcome you and your participation. I appreciate you. Thank you so much, Brother Ty. I appreciate you, and I pray that you are in prosperity, blessing, and peace. And everything that you touch may prosper. You are such a gem and such a jewel to the kingdom. And I really, really do appreciate you, brother. And for all of you, y'all are family. And so, I promised a story about honor. So the other thing about my mother's generation, looking at generational curses, was that everyone, all of her sisters got married and divorced, except for my mother. My mother was the only one out of her 5 sisters, so the 6 girls, she was the only one who stayed married until my father passed away. And so in my family was a generational curse of divorce and a single parent, having to raise kids in a single parent situation. That was a curse. So I had been struggling through some raggedy relationships as a young woman, and began getting this understanding in my spirit that I had to learn how to be my daddy daughter before I could learn how to be somebody's wife. I, I can't remember the exact moment in time, but I got this understanding. If you are going to be somebody's wife, you're going to have to learn how to be your daddy daughter. And so my dad and we used to clash all the time. His heart was broken because I had children young, and he always wanted me to go to law school. He always saw me as being very capable of doing more than what our family had ever accomplished. So when I had my babies, he was crushed. He had just given up on me. And my dad was, the way he used to talk to me out of his unprocessed pains, it wasn't making our relationship good at all. And I wanted him to change so that things could change between us. But I got that insight that I had to learn to be his daughter, and that I, as his daughter, couldn't demand for him to change, but I could change the way that I responded to him. And so we went from, he would start fussing at me, and then I would start crying, and then I start fussing back, and we would go back and forth with that. That was our pattern, him and I. And I decided, you know what? I'm just going to listen to him. Even if I don't agree with him, I'm just going to listen to him. And so went home after I made that decision, and my daddy got to fussing. And I said, okay, daddy, I hear you. And he started fussing some more. And I said, okay, daddy, I hear you. And he was like waiting for me to give it back to him, because that's what that's what he was used to. But I just kept telling my daddy, I said, daddy, I hear you. I understand. And then the fight was over. My dad and I used to go at it for hours, nonstop, because I wouldn't let him know that I heard him. And all he wanted me to do was to honor him and let him know that I heard what he was saying, that I was listening to him. So that's when we first broke the cycle of him and me doing that. And a short time after that, I began to think about ways that I could honor my dad. So one of the things, my dad did not like the way I used to dress. Oh my gosh, I was a hot girl. He did not like the way I used to carry myself. He didn't like my choice of clothing. It used to make him very upset. And I didn't care. I was young, and that's what you do when you're young. You wear what you want to wear and go where you want to go and dance how you want to dance. My dad didn't like it. And I started thinking about it. I said, I want to wear something that my dad likes to see me in. So I went shopping, and at that time I could only afford clothes from the thrift store. And I got a couple of outfits that I thought would be modest, but still cute. Because when you're young, you don't want to dress like a old person. You still want to show your shape and stuff. Right? But I still made some choices that were more modest. And when I came home, I showed my dad what I bought, and I put them on, and I let him see my new outfits. And he was so pleased with my outfits. And he was like, that's real nice. I like that. And then I began being more intentional about wearing more of those kind of things that my dad liked to see me in versus the stuff that used to get him worked up and upset. And I was living with my parents right before my dad passed away. I didn't know my dad was dying. I didn't know I only had a few months with him to learn how to be his daughter and to learn how to honor him. But he was taking notice of my effort to honor him. And one of our little trips to the grocery store, it was just him and me coming back to the house. He blessed me the way that the patriarchs do. And that was only a couple of months before he passed away. And his blessing was specifically concerning my husband. Again, when I tell you that the curse in my family was divorce, the curse in my family was single parent homes, the curse in my family was that we're a family full of Amazon, single, independent, strong women, big women too, big and tall. But no men at our get-togethers except for my dad. And my father released a blessing over me 2 months before he passed away concerning a husband. And to be 16 years married to my husband now, and even when I think about just who he is as my most loyal friend, that was a result of my honor to my father and the power of his spiritual authority and blessing me, that I too would be married and secure in my marriage, the way that he had provided security in marriage to my own mother. So when I talk about honor and I talk about breaking generational curses, y'all, it's some of the most simple stuff that will catapult you into the next level of spiritual prosperity, blessing, and goodness, and the true heart of the Father where He wants us to be, because we are honoring Him first as our Father, and then we're honoring our natural parents, and then we're honoring our elders. We loving on them and blessing them and doing right by them, and then we're honoring our neighbors, and we're loving each other like we love ourselves. That is how you heal a nation. That is how you break generational curses. And I'm just thankful and honored and humbled to be able to share my firsthand experience of how it has absolutely worked for me. So may you be blessed and encouraged, and like, share, and pass this along to somebody who's younger, who don't exactly understand how any of this old time stuff works, because they are our future. They are out here looking for answers. They are out here on social media, standing for the faith. They are breaking away from organized religion because they see the hypocrisy of it, and they are looking for practical solutions, the truth, the answers to life. Like, they are full of life and strength, and we need each other. So share this with a millennial or Gen Z that you love, and continue to fight the good fight and break those curses and walk in the prosperous place that your Father has prepared for you since the beginning of time. And I look forward to seeing y'all for our very next legal training. Y'all take care.